Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week, 10 days. For today's second video, that's going to take us to around the 16th of November. So we're heading into the middle part of the month with the week 10-day video update time frame now. We'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. They run to around a couple of weeks. And we'll have a look at CFS-V2 at the end of the video for the next month. That will take us into the beginning of December. Can you believe? Now, before we do anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest patron. So I'm going to say a big thank you to Donald Penman. Donald Penman has become our latest patron for Gaz Weathers. Big thank you, Donald, for doing that. So we've got 63 patrons so far. Hello, a big thank you to our 63 patrons. Hope you're very much enjoying the weather videos and content at the moment. So if you'd like to become a patron for Gaz Weathers, all you need to do is come to Gaz's Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you give an ongoing monthly donation to Gaz Weathers. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards, and by doing that, you're going to become a patron, and we'll give you a shout out in videos and we'll say thank you so much for doing that. So big thank you to Donald Penman for becoming our latest patron. Thank you so much, Donald, for that. Alternatively, you can become a donor through PayPal. So if you'd like to give a donation through PayPal, then all you need to do is come to Gaz Weathers' PayPal page. You sign into your PayPal account. Send a donation to Gaz Weathers, and by doing that, you're going to help pay for the website and help us to keep the content online. And we'll give you a shout out in videos. We'll say thank you very much for doing that if you want one. Now, when you send your donation, you'll receive an email back from us asking whether you would like a mention in the videos and how you would like that mention and that sort of thing. So if you can reply to that email, then that would be absolutely great. We've had a couple of donations in the past couple of days. We've sent the email, but those people haven't replied to emails yet. So if those people are watching, can you please reply to emails and let us know if you want to mention in the videos. Want to make sure everybody's happy with mention that they get before we do it. So that's how you do it, both through PayPal and through Patreon. Big thank you to all of our PayPal donors. Big thank you to all of our patrons as well. And a special thank you to our latest patron, Donald Penman. Thank you so much, Donald, for doing that. Right, so we're going to start the video with latest observations from xcweather.co.uk. So we've got pretty chilly air across the country today. So it's cold in many parts of the country, pretty grey and chilly. It's Leeds, Bradford, for example, only at 4 degrees right now at 2:38 in the afternoon. We've also got, let's try one or two other stations. So Esdelmuir is at 5 degrees. Charter Hall is at 6 degrees, and going up into Scotland, Strathallan is at 5 degrees, Tulloch Bridge is at 6. Coming down into Wales, we've got Shobdon at 7 degrees, Pershore is only at 8 degrees. We've got Oxford at 8 degrees as well, Church Lawford at 7, Wittering at 7. Going further south, we've got London City Airport at 10. And Shoreham Airport is at 9. Mildest temperatures look to be in the far southwest. Exeter is at 11. Northwick is at 10. Going a bit further south, Plymouth is at 11 degrees. And so we're struggling to just about make it into double digits in the far southwest of the country, but most places are actually sitting at around single-digit temperatures today, and up in very far north of Scotland, Outnahara is stuck at just 1 degree up there in the Scottish mountains. So it's a pretty chilly day out there. This is not going to help the central England temperature, and this is a sign of things to come actually over the next few days, because we are going to have plenty of cold days coming up, I think, and some quite frosty nights at times as well. So the CET for November up to the 5th of November is currently standing at 9.3. That is an anomaly of 1 degree above average. So was a relatively mild start to the month, but today's temperatures are going to knock quite a lot off that. It was frosty last night across central England as well, so you can expect that to come down quite a bit tomorrow, and it will continue to drop over the next few days. So I think by the time you get through to the early part of next week, that's going to undoubtedly be colder than average, following on, of course, from October, which came out at over half a degree colder than average. So quite a chilly autumn at the moment, but of course we'll see whether this continues further into the month. We're at early days for November, so it's possible we'll only have a few colder days, then things will start to get milder. But I certainly think by the time you get through to the early part of next week, we will be looking at colder than average CT anomaly. And now yesterday, in yesterday's video, we looked at what's happening in the stratosphere over the North Pole at 10 HPA and over the Arctic. So the blue colours here, these are the cold temperatures that we got at 10 HPA in the stratosphere. This is the latest forecast from the GFS. Yesterday, the latter part of the GFS run was indicating a chance of some sort of quite significant warming of the stratosphere over Siberia in the extended range. It takes us just about to the middle to second half of November. Just thought I'd have a quick look at it today. So we're up to the 14th of November, still with those cold temperatures in the stratosphere at 10 HPA, up to the 14th of November. Beyond that, do we see any warming of the stratosphere taking place in the extended range? There is a little bit going on there, but not as much as yesterday, actually. This takes us to the 22nd of November. A bit of a warming is occurring there over Siberia, but to be honest, that's not as much of a warming as we were seeing within the GFS yesterday. So it looks like the GFS has backed away from that idea of a major warming of the stratosphere over Siberia, and possibly moving towards the Arctic in the second half of November. Looks like GFS has just backed off that a little bit today, and actually by the time you get through 22nd of November, it is going for a very cold temperature in the stratosphere at 10 HPA over top of the Arctic. Look at those purple colours there, that's a very, very cold temperature indeed. So looks like GFS is backing away from that idea at the moment of warming the stratosphere. It's very, very early days for any sort of warming of the stratosphere anyway. Normally this is something that occurs later in the winter, or sometimes at the end of the winter, sometimes not even into the spring. So any kind of warming of the stratosphere in November is going to be quite unusual, and as I say, it doesn't look as though the GFS has backed off that idea a little bit on this particular GFS run. Remember, if you're talking about extended range charts, even if you're talking about stratospheric temperature charts, it's all unreliable. It's anything over around 5 to 7 days is going to be unreliable and prone to chopping and changing, and that's true. That's as true for sort of stratospheric temperature forecast as it is for any other forecast that's within the 10 to 14 or 15 day time frame. We'll keep an eye on the stratosphere. You'll see more of it as we go through into the winter, particularly as we go further on into the winter. It's always an important feature within the videos as we get into the winter. Right, these are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We'll look at Penzance. Today, another suggested location for this section of video. If you'd like to have your local town or city featured within the videos and in this particular section of the videos, then all you need to do is ask us through the comments at GalTownBiz or email us at galtownbiz@gmail.com. Or alternatively, you can ask us via social media as well. We can't go down to village level yet, but we can certainly show your local town or city. So this is another suggested location for Penzance. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Penzance, and we're a bit cold on average at the moment. We're going to go colder over the next few days, and really for the next week to 10 days we're staying below average definitively up to the middle part of November. We see the upper air temperatures are solidly below average going to the middle part of the month, so a pretty cold first half to November on the way. The second half of the month, which is this period just here, and of course it's in the unreliable time frame of the GFS and its ensemble, does show a little bit more scatter. There are still some quite cold members, these ones down here, but we have got milder members as well. And overall, I think we see that we may start to get a bit of a recovery in the upper air temperatures just after the middle part of the month. Not sure it will last all that long, but there could be a little bit of a recovery in the temperature around the middle part of the month after quite a cold first half. More dramatic though than the temperature is what's happening with precipitation, because again we see regular rainfall spikes. In fact, they seem to be getting more frequent, if anything, and intense as we go further on into November. So this period just here looks very wet. This is around the middle of November. Big precipitation spikes then. So that could be a very, very wet period indeed. Before then, though, there's regular rainfall spikes going up to the middle of November. So it might not be dramatically wet, but it will certainly be unsettled, and there will be some heavy rain around at times from now really through to the middle of the month. And even into the second half of the month, it looks like we keep precipitation spikes going. There's certainly no sign of any particularly dry spell of weather. It looks very unsettled. There's been a very unsettled autumn, of course, since around the last 10 days of September anyway, with regular bouts of rain, and it looks like this is all set to continue even into the second half of November. No sign of a protracted drier period within the next couple of weeks. So moving on to the temperature anomaly, this is how it's looking from the 6th to the 14th of November. Below average, going to be a cold and average week coming up for the UK and also for Ireland as well. In fact, most parts of Western Europe are colder than average, particularly so across parts of Norway and northern Scandinavia, where we're around 10 degrees below average. Conversely, though, the southeast of Europe looks very warm. Southwest Russia down into the Black Sea and then through towards Greece and Turkey. Some areas there are going up to 10 degrees above average, so a real northwest-southeast split with the temperature anomaly in weekend. It's the north and the west that's getting the coldest conditions in the coming week. Precipitation-wise, we look like that from the 6th to the 14th of November. Bit of variation, so Scotland actually looks a bit drier than average. England, Wales closer to average, quite wet across northern parts of England. Given the ensemble that we just saw here, let's go back to it. Given the ensemble that we just saw there for Penzance, I would have expected the anomaly to be wetter than that, to be honest. But I suppose Penzance is going to be somewhere that's quite exposed to the Atlantic, so perhaps a little bit wetter there than other parts of the country. But I do think, I'm going to show you the charts any minute, and I do think we are looking at a very changeable spell coming up. In fact, let's get on to those right now. So this is how the GFS is looking for Saturday. This will covered by the 5-day forecast. Of course, low pressure coming in from the west on Saturday will bring heavy rain and also the chance of hail snow up in the north on what will be a cold and miserable day on Saturday. Sunday takes that low pressure away, build a little bit of a ridge across the country, will be slightly drier on Sunday but quite cold. Into early next week, low pressures keep coming in from off the Atlantic, so it remains cool and unsettled through the course of next week. This is taking us towards the latter stages of next week. Deepening area of low pressure developing around Iceland. That's bringing wet, windy weather across the country, maybe gale force winds coming in with that. Those colours don't represent temperature, by the way. They're more representative of heights, really. So it's not going to be really cold with those blue colours, just very low pressure essentially pushing across the country, wet and windy for the end of next week. That's the middle of the month. That's where we saw in the ensemble graph that it does look as though there could be some really wet weather around that middle part of November. Now this is up to day 10, which gets us to the 16th of November. Low pressure is still dominating weather then, bringing quite a cold northwesterly, sunshine and showers probably, with that wintry showers up in the north. More low pressure is waiting in the wings in the Atlantic. That heads in across the country. Could be some snow potential with that on the northern side of that low there on Sunday the 17th of November, and then that pushes out of the way, leaves us again in this run of cold and showery northwesterly winds in the extended range with the GFS run. That's how we're looking. So eventually we begin to shift the winds more towards the southwest as we get through to the very end of the GFS run. This gets us to the 22nd of November. That will start to bring milder temperatures up from the southwest. It's still unsettled, still low pressure dominating around Greenland and Iceland. The only difference is that the wind is shifting from that cold north-northwesterly into more of a west-southwesterly. So temperatures will start to stage a little bit of a recovery there for a while anyway. Where to next? So we go there. This is for GM, and again on Saturday we're looking at quite a cold, wet day. That low pressure clears away on Sunday into the early part of next week. More low pressure is coming in off the Atlantic, this time particularly affecting more northern parts of the country. Winds turning northerly there through the middle of next week. That could bring quite cold conditions and maybe some wintry showers to northern areas. And then into the second half of next week, we have this deepening area of low pressure moving in from the North Atlantic. That's sinking down across the country, bringing more spells of rain with it. Behind that, heights are rising again, and winds are turning into quite a cold northerly wind. So again, that's quite an interesting movement of that low. There we are on Thursday, the 14th of November, and the low pressure is starting around Greenland and Iceland. 24 hours on, the low pressure is sinking from Greenland and Iceland in towards Scotland, and another 24 hours on, the low has actually sank through the country and is sitting over France. So it's gone in that sort of direction, and that's allowed winds to turn into the east. I've talked about this in videos before. When we see low pressures sort of decoupling from Greenland and Iceland, where they would normally be at this time of year, when we see them doing that, moving across the west of Europe in that sort of fashion from Iceland to France, that tells you that something quite unusual is going on with the atmosphere as far as the GM is concerned. Anyway, the GFS didn't really show that happening around the middle part of the month, but just have to wait and see. It wouldn't be the first time that has happened this autumn. And this November, and indeed late October too. So just have to wait and see where that's going. Then we've got the ECMWF again, looking quite wet and windy over the weekend. Heavy rain and potentially hill snow coming up on Saturday, and then go through into sunny. That low pressure clears away to the south, leaves us with quite a cold easterly wind. A little bump of high pressure there from the early part of next week, then more low pressure coming back in off the Atlantic, bringing further rain and probably hill snow as well. Into the middle of next week, the ECM takes that low pressure down the North Sea. So doing something similar to what the GM was showing. It doesn't move it from Iceland to France, it moves it from Iceland into the North Sea. The upshot is that by daytime, which is Saturday the 16th of November, winds are still coming in from the north. It still looks quite cold and showery there on the ECM, and no doubt there will be wintry showers in northern and eastern parts of the country with that, I would have thought. So these are the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10. And this gets us to the 16th of November, of course. So we have 25 members of the ECM ensembles, including the operational and the control room, that have above average heights out to the west and the northwest of the country, and below average heights to the east and the southeast, and that leaves us pulling in quite cold northerly winds at day 10 with those 25. Then there's 13 members of the ECM ensembles with a Scandinavian high. Let's change the colour. We've got a Scandinavian high sitting up here. And then we've got low pressure to both our south and also to our northwest. This low pressure around Greenland and Iceland will be putting this ridge under a lot of pressure. There will be quite an active jet stream that's trying to break down that Scandinavian high. But for a while anyway, we'll probably be bringing in easterly winds, and they could be quite cold. And then we've got 13 just here that shows what happens if the jet stream breaks down the Scandinavian high. These ones are milder. They have low pressure to the north of Scotland and high pressure sitting just to the southwest of us, and so conversely with those, the winds are in from the west, and of course that's a milder wind direction in the middle of November. Probably relatively dry in the south, but quite unsettled up in the north. I think overall up to day 10, which is just beyond mid-month, it's 16th of November, up to then, looks as though the ECM ensembles are favouring quite cold conditions. 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. This is for the 21st of November. So again, we see 21 members of the ECM ensembles with a Scandinavian high, quite a big area of high pressure over Scandinavia, and maybe bringing the winds generally from an easterly direction. Low pressures down to the southwest. I would have thought relatively dry, but quite cold, maybe wintry showers with that in the east. 19 members of the ECM ensembles have low pressure just over and to the north of the country. They're very unsettled, quite cool as well. The jet stream is on a bit of a southerly track. We're on the cold side of the jet with those, so that's an unsettled and quite cold option. And then 11 just here with a shallow trough of low pressure over to the east of the country and in the middle of the Atlantic. A little bit messy, that's slightly flatter, perhaps a bit milder with winds in from the west, but there's no particularly strong Azores ridge with that, so I mean, we wouldn't be talking about particularly mild conditions at all, I would have thought. Maybe slightly milder than these two options here, but nevertheless, perhaps a bit on the cool side and still rather unsettled. There's no sign of any sustained warmth within the ECM ensembles, I have to say, in the next couple of weeks. They may all look rather cold and unsettled, those options, to me, really. Finally, just having a look at the CFS V2 for the next month before we go. So these are 500 millibar hikes broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period takes us from the 6th to the 12th of November. The coming week is cold and unsettled with a deep trough of low pressure across the UK and Western Europe and a blocking area of high pressure over Greenland and the Arctic that forces the jet stream southwards. So on the cold side of the jet, we're within that trough of low pressure, looking cold and unsettled there. We go through to week 2, which is the 13th to the 19th of November. Still that deep trough of low pressure covering much of Western Europe. Have got quite a warm ridge across the east of Europe. That's going to be bringing up winds from the south in the eastern part of Europe, and that does extend back towards high pressure over the Arctic and over the North Pole too. Deep troughing to the east of America, by the way. That's been much colder conditions into there. So both sides of the Atlantic are cold as we get through to the middle of November. Then we go through to week 3, which is the 20th to 26th of November. Below average heights again to the west of us. Jet stream is on this northwest-southeast alignment, so still quite cold and unsettled. Ridge is building to our east. It's getting closer to Scandinavia. Probably not enough to turn the winds into the east. It's a little bit of a battle that's going on there. And there could be weather fronts becoming quite slow-moving in that sort of scenario across the UK. And that could be a very wet period, actually, as those fronts sort of slow down and struggle to clear the country. Quite cold and wet for week 3. Bit of a change, though, for week 4, and CFS is, at the moment, showing this quite consistently, actually. This is the 27th of November to the 3rd of December. It looks milder. Low pressure's out to the northwest. High pressure is strengthening down towards Spain and the Azores, connects to this high pressure over Scandinavia as well, and so that will bring in winds from a milder west-southwesterly direction, a recovery in temperature taking place by the time we get through to the end of November and the beginning of December. Before that, it's quite cold, but right at the end of the month and into the beginning of next month, it starts to turn milder. As I say, the CFS is quite consistent with that idea at the moment, but it is week 4, so it's a very, very long time out, and just because the CFS is consistent at the moment with that does not mean it will verify in the more reasonable time frame, which is the next week to 10 days. It's looking cold and unsettled. No change on that today, and probably staying quite unsettled and pretty chilly, I would have thought, even into the second half of the month. Whether it gets milder by month's end, we shall wait and see. Right, so that's it for your videos for today. We shall be back tomorrow with another week 10-day video update. And tomorrow we've also got the 3rd Christmas update coming up for you as well. So keep checking back for all of the updates tomorrow. But that's all for now. And thanks for watching.